are never silent. Never silent, guys. Never.
Unfortunately, our current U.S. Senator Scott Brown has fallen too short.
Amen? Way short.
Say amen?
Yeah, amen.
All right, amen. He has fallen way short on protecting work and family and has repeatedly voted against the interests of Massachusetts. He has consistently put corporate interests and the wealthiest 1% ahead of the concerns of the people who elected him. Forbes magazine even called him Wall Street's favorite congressman. He's not ours, but he's Forbes magazine's favorite congressman.
Amen.
He didn't even bother to show up today. We invited him. We even encouraged many of you to call, and some of you did call, and asked him to show up today. He didn't even bother to answer the questionnaire. He does not answer to you, he does not answer to the voters, and he does not answer to the people.
An appointee to the Commissioner on the Commissioner of the Status of Women, Marisa DeFranco.
Buenos dias, can you hear me? Yes. Buongiorno and ciao. Thank you very much for having me today. So my name is Marisa DeFranco, and I am a Democrat from the Labor and Immigrant wing of the Democratic Party. And I have a long history of loud and clear support for unions. And by the way, I checked my dictionary this morning, and indeed I did find out that union is a 5-letter word, not a 4-letter word. Who am I and where do I come from? I come from grandparents who came fresh off the boat from Sicily. A lot of people talk about grandparents who had an 8th grade education. My grandparents had 0 education, and they came to this country with a dream, like everybody in this room and all of your friends and sisters and brothers and mothers and fathers come to live the American dream and to fight for justice for everyone. My campaign is based on equal opportunity for all, not just the 1%, but the 99%. I am the 99%, and I have stood strong with the Occupy movement and the 99% in Boston, and for the last 15 years of my career. I am also an immigration attorney. Yes, woohoo, for immigrants. And I talk about it on the campaign trail, even though Democrats in many venues tell me not to because it's too controversial. No, we don't. We'll talk about that after the election. This is an election year. You don't talk about immigration. Why would you talk about immigration? I mean, it's only what I've been doing for the my entire career, 15 years. I started my practice when I was 26 years old with nothing. With the support of my loving husband, he was then my boyfriend, and I started from the ground up. So I know what it's like to build something from nothing. And I got into this race to do one thing, and that is to fight for the people against the powerful. And yes, for the middle class, but not just for the middle class, but for the working class and the immigrant class, and for women and LGBT and everybody that faces discrimination across this country. I am the one who has the backbone and the history and the experience, which should count for something, of being in the streets and standing up for people's rights when it's not popular, and being in the rallies and getting spit on by hostile people because I'm defending people that nobody wants to talk about. I am in this race. And make no mistake about it, to beat Scott Brown, we have to be smarter and better and faster. And this is a street fight. And you need a street fighter to go against him. We're not going to get people to hate Scott Brown, and that's a bad strategy. But how we win against Scott Brown is to beat him on ideas and backbone, because he doesn't have either, and I have more than enough. I am a Democrat Democrat who does not shy away from saying the word union. I am the only Democrat that has the word on my website and has constantly brought it up in public venues, in debates. I mentioned it twice in both debates at Stonehill College and University of Massachusetts at Lowell. And I also am the only one who mentioned the Employee Free Choice Act, because as a Democrat, we cannot keep playing the game of Republicans say, we want to cut taxes, and the Democrats say, I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to cut taxes better than you. We lose that game. As a Democrat, I say we need jobs now. That is the #1 platform of my campaign. Jobs now, now, now. And I am the only one that is proud to say that I believe in FDR-style public investment in Americans. Because if the federal government doesn't believe in Americans, then who will? Because the private sector is sitting on $2 trillion worth of money and they are not hiring. Because they can squeeze the productivity out of the current workforce as long as they want. And if we put my plan, $100 billion over 2 years, we would create 2 million green jobs. And I ask for your support as a history of having strong union support and the work that I've done on paid sick days, legislative visits, 40 legislative visits on equal pay, marching with the Verizon workers, marching at the No Cuts rally this past fall. I have the on-the-ground, real-world experience to win this fight. And I ask for your support because you need somebody who's going to be loud and clear about union jobs and how that is going to take us out of this economic misery. I am your fighter. I am your candidate. And you know, of course, everyone knows the saying, si se puede, right? Yeah. And in addition to that, I say, yes, we will. Thank you.
A sitting U.S. Senator with a massive war chest of over $8 million. How will you raise the money and fuel the campaign that went against the combined power of incumbency and near-record funding?
Yes, thank you for your question, Yvette. This is something I've talked about a lot on the campaign trail. And what Democrats make the mistake in doing is trying to fight Republicans on money. Because the Democratic candidate, I'm raising money now and we'll have enough money. And as Chairman John Walsh of the Democratic Party said, whoever our nominee will be, they will have the funds from the Democratic Party, both national and state. But in addition to that, if we have this fight on money, Democrats lose when they try to fight on money and not ideas. Because if the Democratic candidate raises $5 million, Scott Brown will raise 10. If we raise 10, he will raise 20 because he has an unending funding source from the Koch brothers. And so matching our rich guy versus their rich guy is not a good strategy. We have to win this fight on ideas. And there are precedents for this. Paul Wellstone was outspent 7-1 by and he won against an entrenched incumbent, not someone who's been there for a couple of years like Scott. And so there is time over and over again where you see that candidates who have the powerful ideas and are willing to put their principles on the line and speak about a message and have a clear plan. I have a clear jobs plan. That's how we beat Scott Brown. He has none. He's gone to Washington and created one job and one job only, his. We need a candidate who has a serious plan for renewable energy. You can look at my website and compare it. I have a thorough and detailed plan. And when I got into this race, that was the backbone of my campaign. To speak about the power of ideas because the money is drowning it out. And there is only one thing that beats money. And that is the power of the people. We have seen... words like front runner and impossibility and all those things, I have a couple of retorts to that. I think as Americans, we all know who the quintessential front runner was in history, right? The British Army. So if anybody around that says you can't do it or it's impossible, don't even try, if they were here around that time, we'd still be speaking with British accents, wouldn't we? So in the other parts of history, the civil rights movement. You know, desegregation didn't happen overnight. It took decades upon decades. Women's suffrage took 60 years. And I'm the one in this race, by the way, with the hardcore 16 plus years of experience in advocating for women's rights and LGBT rights on the Hill and in Congress with my volunteer time and advocacy. I won a national award for my pro bono service representing a gay gentleman from Uganda who was in danger of losing his life due to persecution there because of their extremely abhorrent policies against the LGBT community. I spent almost 400 hours on that case, and I won his case. For free, but I did get a national award out of it, the Beacon of Justice Award, so that was kind of nice. And also, of course, saving his life. And he was an amazing person, and that's the kind of people I represent, and that's the kind of person I am to beat Scott Brown, to answer your question, Yvette.
Thank you. Beth, is that right? Yeah. Beth. So, the very first thing I would jump to the front of the line to put my name on the Employee Free Choice Act, bar none. We had an opportunity to pass that when the Democrats had the House and the Senate and the White House, and it was a very tragic miss. And we cannot do that again. And even if we don't have the majority, we have to get the Republicans on our side. We constantly make the mistake as Democrats of arguing on their turf and allowing them to be as extreme as possible. And this is their strategy, because if they don't necessarily believe, well, some of them do, in their extremist policies, but they know that they're never going to pass some of the stuff they talk about, but they know they're going to be able to pull Democrats into the center. And Democrats fall for it every single time. It is not an extreme idea to be for a union. My grandfather was a union worker at the GE for 40 years, and that enabled him to move his family into the middle class and have a nice retirement. But his retirement was not as good as the CEO of GE, and that is the problem. We went from 40 to 1. A CEO would be making about $1.6 million if the person on the floor was making $40,000. Now, that CEO makes $16 million compared to somebody making $40,000, and we know it's lower than $40,000 because the wages are going down, not up. And if unions are so bad, what I would do as a U.S. Senator is I would go and take to the streets and get people involved, because people showing up in their legislator's office is what changes votes. I know that from personal experience. As a commissioner, there was a bill for equal pay that has died for 11 years in a row. We made, our small band of 3 and 4 women, made 40 legislative visits. We got that bill out of committee for the first time in 11 years. That is the kind of leadership that I would show as a U.S. Senator. And also, I would say this: if squashing unions is so great for business, and this is the business model of the future, how come Walmart, the biggest union-hating company on the block, has had its stock has been stagnant for 10 years? We know that it doesn't work, and it's not good for anybody, especially the workers. And so that is the kind of facts that we need to bring to the light and bring to the table and say it over and over again. The other mistake Democrats make is they try a couple times and then they get tired. We can't afford to be tired, because the Republicans have one mantra. I say this all the time: lather, rinse, repeat. That's what they do. And Democrats need to learn the repeat part. Repeat, repeat, repeat. And that is the kind of leadership I've shown in my career, and that is the kind of leadership that I would show as a U.S. Senator. Thanks for your question, Beth.
And so I support a tax system that's progressive, that's fair, and that recognizes that workers deserve not a break, but they deserve their equal piece of the pie, and we're tired of taking the dregs. And that is what I would do with the U.S. tax system.